Okay, and we're live. Good day, guys. Good day to you all. Welcome back to the Formula Sports channel. Thanks for being here. So I know you guys have been waiting for a little while. Our apologies where that is concerned. But our special guest is here with us, Mr. Hugo Alvarado. Welcome to the Formula Sports channel, Mr. Alvarado.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure.
A big upcoming game later on, Mr. Alvarado.
Yes, I think it's a crucial match for both teams, I think.
Agreed. Both teams are in a precarious position in the table right now. So both teams definitely need the 3 points.
Yes, indeed.
All right. So for this stream, Mr. Alvarado, I want to do two things. One, I want to do a preview to the game. But before that, I just want to, allow our viewers a chance to get to know Mr. Hugo Alvarado. Right. So the first thing I want to ask you, about your background, right? In terms of from a personal standpoint, if that's okay with you.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I have a very particular background. So I've been a fan, obviously a fan of football, fan of the Salvadorian national team for a very long time. I was born in El Salvador and moved to the United States when I was 9. And ever since I arrived here, I've been following the national team whenever uh, we have friendly matches. There's a big Salvadorian community in Los Angeles, in the United States. So I will always go to watch the matches and be disappointed when we lost. And and a lot of the matches in the 90s when I arrived was against Mexico, and those games we will lose most of the time. So I continue watching the team. Um, I always been involved in football in one way or another, but not as a professional. Like I never played professional football. I play for fun and follow the national team. In 2010, I started a website called Select a Talent or Select a Talent, and my idea was to find all the eligible Salvadorian footballers around the world. So whether they had a grandparent or a father, biological father, who was born in Salvadorian territory, I would look for them mostly on the internet, and then I would do a video scouting and send reports to the national team coaches, and I started having some success with that. And I've been doing it for 11 years. I managed to place many players in the national team, um, but it was like one or two here and there every 2 years, maybe. But things changed last year with the arrival of a new sporting director, Diego Enriquez. He had heard about my work and he contacted me and he asked me if I wanted to be the official scout for the national team. To which I said yes, because I had been doing this for a long time, so it was like the opportunity that I've been looking for, that I've been working towards for a very long time. And so I started working as a official basis, for the national team, scouting, doing what I've been doing. And then a few months later, Hugo Perez, our current coach, was hired to coach the under 23 team, and later he became the senior team coach. So Hugo Perez, it's a born in El Salvador, but he represented the United States, and he was hired as the coach, and he had a lot of interest in bringing players from abroad, players, the diaspora, and he wanted those players. And I had been working for 11 years, building a database of those players. And that's part of the reason why now the current national team has anywhere between 6 to 8 players that I have scouted throughout the years. and that's basically my background. So you probably saw it on the BBC article. It's kind of like I'm being portrayed as the fan who had a passion and was turned into the official scout for El Salvador. So a lot of that is true. I've been working on this as a fan, as a hobby, wanted to support my country, and eventually I got the opportunity to do it at an official level. I can't hear you.
My mic was muted. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Your story is a very inspiring one, to be honest with you. And is a subscriber of mine actually sent me the article about a month ago, the BBC article, right? Sent me the article, and I was like, I would really appreciate getting Mr. Alvarado on my show, man. I thought the article was just a beautiful football story. That's just how it came across to me, right?
Yes.
In terms of your that love for El Salvadorian football, right? Apart from you being from El Salvador, how did that love for the national program come about? Where did that originate from?
That's an interesting question. As you know, a lot of Salvadorians who left El Salvador, we didn't really do it because we wanted to. We were forced out for different reasons. Maybe financially the country was not doing well, and moving to a different country was a better opportunity. There was a civil war. I mean, there's been many wars, but there was a civil war in the 1980, ended in 1992. The country was left in a really bad shape. So a lot of families started leaving the country. In my case, my parents left, and I did not wanted to leave El Salvador. I wanted to stay there. I was happy there as a kid. And I think that when we are forced to leave and we arrive in a different country with different culture, and even though there are many Hispanics here in Los Angeles, there's also a big diversity of Mexicans are the majority of immigrants here, and then we have Salvadorian, Hondurans, Guatemalans, and the national team, for those of us who like football, it's kind of like a way of belonging. It gives us a sense of belonging and being part of that country that we were forced to leave for one reason or another. It's like we may have many differences, but the country, the national team, the football national team, is what brings us together. And when we go watch the national team, it's a way for us to experience just a little piece of that country that we left behind. And I think that combined with some people are not even able to return because of their legal status, so they don't have that opportunity to go back and visit family. So again, watching the national team play is a way of experiencing a little bit of that, and just the desire to see our country succeed in football. It's part of that love, and always being the underdogs, because we usually, that's the case. There's other countries that have grown a lot, Jamaica being one of them, that after the 1998 qualifiers, we were actually there head to head with Jamaica, fighting for that third spot, and Jamaica managed to get some really good results at home against us, and then a positive result in Kingston, and we lost that opportunity to go to France, and Jamaica made it to their first historic World Cup under Hernandez. So yeah, I think it's just I say that it's part of our my DNA, and there's a lot of people like me. I'm sure you can relate as well. Um, yeah, so that's how the love is there for the country. Just being in between. Like I'm American in a way, but also I'm Salvadorian, and that's my root. That's where I come from, and I identify with that.
How just to to clearly state, how long have you been unofficially scouting for the national team, and how long have you been officially scouting for the El Salvador national team?
Unofficially, 11 years. This October was 11 years.
Whoa.
Officially, officially 1 year and a month.
Mm. Whoa. Whoa. 11
Yeah.
years. That's a long time.
Yes,
So basically you were unofficially scouting for basically a decade.
that's correct. Yes.
Unofficially, my friend.
Unofficially, and I was being successful at it. I was placing players in the national team, in the senior team, in the under 20 team, under 23 team, but it was more of a process in which I would talk directly to the coaches, and I would introduce myself as a fan who had been doing this for a long time, and I had players, and I had highlight videos and reports that I had put together. And then I would talk to the coaches, and the coaches were like, "Yeah, we're interested. We want to see that player." I would help players with their documentation so they could get their passport. Um, so so yeah, that's basically I was talking directly to the coaches, to the different teams, under 17, under 20, senior coach, and that's how I managed to place the players prior to being named the official scout a year ago. And now it's a little different because I basically send information directly to the sporting director, to the coaches as well. But I get requests. We are looking for players that are born in 2005, 2006, for example, or 2003, 2004, or they tell me we're looking for uh, a center midfielder or a fullback or a striker. What do you have? So now the requests are a little bit more specific.
Okay. Okay. You know that Hugo, that's some serious passion, Hugo. To be unofficially doing something for a decade. That is just absolute love, my friend. Absolute love, absolute passion. And one of the things that you alluded to in speaking, and the impression that I got was that the El Salvadorian national team, both the federation and the coaching staff, seem to have been very receptive to your work. Right or wrong?
Uh, Recently, yes, as of the last year, but prior to that, yes and no. The coaches, yes, they were the direct beneficiaries of my work. But for some reason, the federation, the different presidents at different times, were not really making a move to bring me in as an official scout, which I always wonder why. If I'm already doing this work and it's already paying off dividends, why not? So I met with different presidents, different times, even when I started within 6 months of starting, because the program got very popular very quickly. I was in El Salvador. I met with the president, and I think at some point I said, "Hey, I would love to be part of this in an official way because it will make it easier to do my work. It will make it easier when I approach the players." But nothing ever happened until last year. So the coaches were receptive. The federation was somewhere in between, I would say, up until recently, that they have been very receptive to my work.
Okay, okay. Because one of the things that I wanted to emphasize in terms of juxtaposing your scenario with El Salvador and our scenario in Jamaica, where it sometimes feels because YouTubers and vloggers out here, and as a matter of fact, let me bring up a comment that one of my subscribers brought up earlier. Let me just see if I can find it quickly. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, is a Salvadorian cataract spreadsheet and all. So basically, for some context, there's this individual by the name of Cataract, and he is the Jamaican version of you. And he, I mean, he has basically, spoken about it's very public and very clear, the sort of pushback, if you'd like, from the official authorities. It's almost as if his work and the work of other vloggers is, they're not really, the powers that be isn't very receptive to it in our scenario. So I really wanted you to touch on that, and to just give us an idea just how receptive. Oh yes, and Mr. Porter as well. And Mr. Porter as well. He is also, so Cataract and Mr. Porter. And as a matter of fact, they actually work together. I know that's the case for, I'm not so sure if you're familiar with one of our players by the name of Anthony Grant.
Yes, I am.
Oh, the CDM. They were the ones that actually worked together, Mr. Porter and Cataract, from my understanding. Mr. Devon Porter and Cataract worked together because we had a CDM problem. Serious CDM problem. We desperately needed a CDM. And, eventually it took a while for the Federation to warm up to the idea. I think they got desperate, especially with the first game against Mexico, where we had a player shortage.
Yeah.
Because of the Red List country saga.
Yeah.
So that's when it kind of forced their hand a bit, for them to say, you know what, we need to bring this guy in right now. So it's very interesting to hear you say that. Oh, you are saying something?
No, I was just gonna say that yes, it took years. I mean, it took, for me, as you see, it took me 10 years. And of course, sometimes you have moments in which you just want to give up because you feel like nobody's listening to you. In my case, I did have a good amount of fans who were listening to me, and somehow, they put pressure as well, and media who was following me and reposting the information that I was finding. But yes, I would say in my case, the Federation was receptive in some ways, but they were not doing enough to bring in the players. It was very difficult to bring in the players, and everything has changed in the last year. We have been bringing in a lot of players, so things have changed. But yes, I don't understand. I mean, in the case of Jamaica, it's even bigger because Jamaica has a huge diaspora in the UK. That's some of the best football is there. So even if you find a player in the third division, those players are good. They can make a big difference. For us, it's most of the players will be in the United States, and although the football has grown a lot here, it's nothing compared to the UK, right? To England. So Jamaica, but I do remember even in '98, Jamaica had a few players who were born in England, representing the Jamaica. But yes, I mean, I don't know. I started in 2010, but I do know that there's a lot of other federations, a lot of other people, fans who have been inspired by me, and they started doing something similar. But Yeah, sometimes it takes work and dedication and just perseverance, and you have to keep going until they listen to you.
You touched on it a little bit, Hugo, but I would like for you to go a little bit more into it. The fans. Are the fans receptive of these players? Are El Salvadorian fans receptive of these, overseas? I'm assuming a lot of them are overseas born
Yes.
or grew up
Uh,
overseas. Were the fans receptive of them? Back home, the locals?
Most of them are. I would say probably about 80% are, and then there's always the 20% that say, well, those are not Salvadorians. They were not born in El Salvador. And they're not even that good. They don't make any difference, or that's normal. That's going to happen. You're always going to have those hardcore nationalists who think that we shouldn't be bringing players from abroad because they don't feel the colors, or they whatever, they only playing for El Salvador because they don't have an opportunity in the other country. And that may be the case sometimes, but for me, I think that it's important to see where you stand first. That, to me, that's the most important thing. Okay, yes, it may be that a certain player is not good enough for England, right? But when you compare the level in Jamaica and the Jamaican National League, then if the player is better than those local ones, then for me that's enough to consider them and take them into account for the national team,
Agreed.
because you can't compare yourself to England or El Salvador, for example. We can't compare ourselves to the United States, who has many players, especially now playing in top leagues in Europe. So just because a player may not be enough, or may not be considered good enough by the country in which they were born, doesn't mean that they're bad players. We have to see what we have first and see if the players that are coming from abroad are better than the national players. And if they are, why not take them into account? And the whole world has been doing that. France has been doing that for a long time. England has taken a lot of talent from Jamaica as well. So it's something that top-notch national teams have been doing for ages,
Fact.
and why not smaller countries like El Salvador and Jamaica? But yes, there's always going to be some pushback from some fans, who, I don't know why. I mean, I can speak for in the case of El Salvador. We haven't been to a World Cup since 1982. Okay, so that's a long time. I mean, fans still talk about the 1982 games when we lost 10-1 against Hungary, and I'm like, okay, if we continue doing the same thing, how are we going to have a different result? You can't expect to have a different outcome when you continue doing the same thing over and over again. So, in the case of El Salvador, bringing in those players born abroad, it, although it's not a completely new thing, because it's been happening since I started doing this, and prior to that, maybe there were a few players. It's not a new thing, but it is for us a new thing in terms of making it a focus. Not a priority necessarily, but yes, a priority in terms of taking them into account to compete with the Salvadorian born players, and choose the best ones from there. But it's not new, but you're always gonna have fans who are against it, and I don't understand why, but it's gonna happen.
Hugo, when you speak, I hear so many. I feel almost as if like it's the same thing with Jamaica. It's a lot of similarities with Jamaica. You talk about fans always talking about, still talking the stories about 1982 to this day. It's the same thing we're quarreling about in Jamaica, where our fans will just keep on harping on 98. We want to talk about a World Cup that is taking place in modern footballing time, so to speak, right? I hear so many similarities in terms of even with the pushback, but in our country, and this is a comment from a fellow vlogger on the screen. It's universal where the pushback is concerned. A lot of
Yes.
Jamaicans seem to think that it's only a Jamaican thing
Mm-hmm.
because we probably have a lot more of it here, We have a lot
Mm-hmm.
of pushback against the UK born players out here. From even the federation, it seems I don't want to say that is the case because they will deny it, but
Mm-hmm.
the vibe that we as fans get is that even
Mm-hmm.
the federation is not too receptive of these players.
Mm-hmm.
But your federation is actually now on board with these players coming on.
Yes, 100%. Yes.
Hmm. Hmm. What was the first player that you one discovered, and two, what was the first player who you got into the El Salvadorian national team?
I mean, there's been many, and the first ones were like under 20, under 17. They were not very. Uh, they play for the under 17, but then they didn't make it pro. So I mean, they're unknown, but I would say the first big player that I managed to put in the national team that I feel like it was like it was that moment in which fans and federation and many other people saw that I was serious about what I was doing. Was a player named Stephen Purdy, who had played in 1860 Munich in Germany, and he was playing in MLS as well. And a lot of people thought he was German Salvadorian, but he was actually American Salvadorian. He just happened to move to play in Germany. He was a player that I wouldn't say that I discovered necessarily, but I was the one who made that push on my with my own funds and my own means to find him, to meet with him in person, and to talk to him about the possibility of playing for El Salvador. And he accepted, and he played for El Salvador. And he was, a very particular player because unlike Jamaica, where physicality and athleticism it's big, for us a lot of our players are small. They're very small and technical, but we tend to suffer sometimes with teams that have a lot more speed, a lot more physical than us. But Steve he was 6'4" in inches, so he was like a meter 93, I think,
Big
which
fellow.
for a Salvadorian, that's huge for a Salvadorian. So he was very particular. He stood out, So when I placed him in the national team, I feel that that's when things change in a way. So he was the first player that I would say um, put me out there as someone who was really serious about the work that I was doing as a volunteer.
Gave you credibility.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Have there been any surprises in your scouting? Would you say that there has been any surprises, like you stumbled on a player that you were surprised that this player was connected to the El Salvador national team or to the country?
Yes. Um, Actually, he's currently in the team. Uh, but years ago, in 2013, there was someone named Marvin Baumgartner, German last name. He was Swiss Salvadorian. Very good player. He played the Under 20 World Cup. He contacted me. He was playing for Zurich for the reserves. And I would have probably never find him with that last name because it's not a Hispanic last name. So I was very surprised when he reached out to me and said, "My mom is Salvadorian and I would like to play for the Salvadorian national team." Um, but recently, It's Enrico Hernandez. He's a Dutch-born uh, player, and the reason that was a big surprise is because there's not a whole lot of Salvadorians in the Netherlands. I don't know, there might be 100. I don't know. I'm just throwing a number out there, but there's not a big population. So when I came across him, and the fact that he was already playing for a team in the first division, or in the under 21 for a team who plays in the first division, and then he made his debut in the Eredivisie. He was a big surprise, not only because he was born in the Netherlands, but also his mother was from Finland and the father from El Salvador. But the biggest surprise was how interested he was in playing for El Salvador. And he had already played youth teams for the Netherlands. So he was still kind of part of that process, but he felt very strongly about wanting to represent El Salvador.
How these players, generally speaking, that you discover, because that's another major issue for us as well, right?
Mhm.
In terms of, sometimes it feels as though these overseas born players that we discover, how how willing are they? How I don't want to say committed, but
Mhm.
how interested are the players that you discover? How interested are they in representing El Salvador? Because for us, that's one major thing that fans keep on complaining about. That some of
Mhm.
these players, it doesn't seem as if they're immediately 100% on board.
Mhm. In my experience, 90%, if not more, of the players are highly interested. I mean, I've come across one player who honestly said, "My priority is the United States, and then Mexico, and then El Salvador." He was very honest up front about it. But everyone else, they're always very interested, and I don't know how well, two things. One is that the Salvadorian culture is very strong. So it's like the parents are very uh, committed to making sure that their children know that they're Salvadorians as well. To know something about the culture, to know something about the food. Like every Salvadorian, I don't know if you know what pupusas are, but they're like a little pancake with cheese inside and beans, and it's like the national dish of El Salvador. When I
Okay.
asked the player, born in the Netherlands, it would be like you asking someone, "Hey, do you like jerk chicken?" And like, "Yes, I eat jerk chicken once a week."
Hugo,
So
you seem to know a lot about Jamaica, my friend.
I do know a lot about Jamaica. I'm a big reggae fan.
Okay.
So I was actually very happy when Jamaica qualified to the 1998 World Cup. I remember watching the game, when in Kingston. Um, and yeah, I thought it was like a heroic thing that they did. So yes, in many ways, I am very familiar with Jamaica, and I like many things Jamaican. So
Favorite reggae
um,
artist?
hmm?
Favorite reggae artist?
Oof. But this would be a little tricky. I was introduced to reggae, and still my favorite band, although not Jamaican, is UB40, the British reggae band. But of course, Bob Marley. I really love Bob Marley. I really love what's his name? The one that has the night nurse.
Oh,
Um, he,
Night Nurse.
yes, he passed away like two
Yes,
years
yes,
ago.
yes. Gregory Isaacs. Gregory Isaacs.
Gregory Isaacs. I love Gregory Isaacs and many
Okay.
of his music. So yes, and as a UB40 fan, a lot of the UB40 music has roots in Jamaica. It's like in Jamaica, maybe they were known in Jamaica, but not internationally. And UB40, recorded some of those songs, and then people knew about them more. So So yes, that's that's how the Salvadorian culture is. Going back to your question, uh, if you ask any Salvadorian, about what's your favorite food or Salvadorian food, 95% of them will know a food, or they would say pupusas or something along the lines of being very connected to their culture. It's rare when a Salvadorian is not really connected.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I don't know how it is for Jamaicans, but so that's one thing. Salvadorians are usually very connected. They know something about the culture, even if they don't speak the language, because that's the other thing we have. See, Jamaicans speak English, and in England they speak English, so they speak the language. But right now we have a player like Enrico Hernandez, who I just told you, Dutch born. He doesn't speak a word of Spanish.
Okay,
Uh,
I was
uh,
very surprised because I saw a part of your interview with him, and
mhm.
his English was very, very strong.
Yes.
I was wondering if he spoke Spanish.
He does not speak Spanish. I mean, in Europe, they learn English as a second language. So that's a benefit for me because a lot of the players I contact in Europe, I can communicate with them in English. But Enrico doesn't speak Spanish. Eric Zavaleta, who was born in the United States, does not speak much Spanish. He understands a lot of it, but he doesn't speak Spanish. So that's a different thing. But even though they don't, I mean, I'll tell you a very interesting story about feeling the pride, right? Because that's a question. The player I told you, Marvin Baumgartner, he spoke German because he grew up in the German side of Switzerland. He spoke very broken English, with a thick German accent. And when he played his first match for El Salvador in the World Cup qualifier, I saw him screaming the national anthem with pride. And I was like, for me, there was a moment in which I was like, wow, I really was I even felt very emotional because I was like, wow, this guy doesn't speak Spanish, but he learned the national anthem. So I asked him, hey, how did you learn the national anthem? And he said, well, on my flight from Switzerland to El Salvador, it was very important for me that if I'm going to represent El Salvador, I want to be able to sing the national anthem, and I feel very, very proud about it. So he
Wow.
watched YouTube videos and listened to the audio, and he learned it on the plane from Switzerland to El Salvador. So I would say a lot of them feel very proud. And when you really get to know the players and you talk to them, I'm sure even Jamaicans probably feel the same way. But the fans, there's a lot of things the fans don't know, and a lot of speculations, and a lot of things that the fans make up a lot of times. That they think that because they were not born in that country, they don't feel proud about it, or they don't care about it, or they're not as committed. Trust me, they're professionals. They're professionals, and they want to win. They always want to win. They always want to do well, no matter what. Um, and they feel the same commitment. In fact, in some cases, it's even harder for them because they know they have to prove a lot of people wrong. They know there's a lot of people who do not support them. There's a lot of people who doubt their commitment to the national team, so they know they have to work extra hard to convince those people who have doubts.
The language barrier, Hugo, is it difficult from an integration standpoint for the new arrivals? Is the language barrier problematic?
Not at this time, fortunately, because the interesting thing now is that you don't have one player who doesn't speak the language. Now you have two or three players who don't speak the language, and then you have players who speak Spanish and English. Plus, we have a coach who's bilingual. Um,
Wow, that's very good.
yes, so
That
we
helps
have
a
a
lot, I'm
sporting
sure.
yes, we have a sporting director who's bilingual. So a lot of the infrastructure or the atmosphere around them has been built to help those players out. Even me having a conversation with a player, me having being born in El Salvador and growing up in the United States, I have a combination of the culture. So I help them, sometimes with some questions that they may have about the culture and about certain words and understanding certain things. That helps. So I feel that currently in El Salvador, that's a big plus, that the coaching staff speaks English and Spanish, and we have players who speak English and Spanish, and those can help, those players who only speak English and no Spanish at all.
From the standpoint of integrating these players, especially where documentation is concerned, that is something that our fans scream about. It is something that bothers them.
Mm-hmm.
For us personally, in our scenario, it's seemingly whenever our federation is handling the documentation of our players, it takes a very, very, very long time. In some cases, I mean, Andre Gray, for instance, I did a video on Andre Gray where one of the things he was speaking on in the interview was it took him half a decade to sort out the process. For El for El Salvador, how long does this process take, generally speaking?
Generally speaking, the process can be as fast as 1 month, and I had cases that took years. I mean, I've had cases that took. I mean, Eric Zavaleta took a while, but in part it was because of the pandemic, because he lived far away from his father, because his father lived in Indiana. He was playing for Toronto FC. So sometimes it's just a matter of gathering all the necessary documents that the Salvadorian government requires. But once you have everything, it's a very, very quick process. And one of the things that we're currently doing in El Salvador is that the federation is also establishing good relationships with the different consulates around the world. So they help us expedite the processes.
Wow.
to get the documents ready. I mean, a documentation process done abroad can take about 4 months. But if that player travels to El Salvador, we can get it done in a week. So so there's different ways. There's just a lot of our players qualify through parents, so it's easier because all we need is the birth certificate of the parent, and then the parent with their child goes to a consulate, their nearest consulate, and then they register their son as a son of a Salvadorian citizen, son or daughter of a Salvadorian citizen. Then that documentation is sent over to El Salvador, where they generate a type of birth certificate for that person, saying that they're Salvadorian because of legislation. Then with that document, the player can then go to the consulate and apply for their passport. I mean, it's a simple process. It's a little longer when the process is done through a grandparent, because the first step is for the grandparent to register their son or daughter as a Salvadorian. Then they have to get their passport. Once they have their passport, then they do the same process for their kids. But it's definitely not a process that takes years. Once you have all the pieces in place, once you have the right support. I had processes that took longer because I was doing it on my own. I was doing a lot of things on my own, making a lot of phone calls, trying to figure things out, trying to find the right contact. But once you have the support, like what we're doing right now with the federation, having direct communication with the local government to help them as well, the process is very quickly.
All right. I want to shift focus a little bit more now to the El Salvadoran national team. But I just want to speak a little bit about this player that you would have facilitated he's playing for the El Salvador national team. Enrico Duanes Hernandez plays for Eindhoven on loan from Vitesse in the Eredivisie. 20 years old, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
He caught my eye when watching some of the qualifiers. As a matter of fact, the first goal that El Salvador scored in the World Cup qualifiers, he was the one that found the back of the net.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that player and how good you think he is now and how good he can be in the future.
Yes, so Enrico's one of my discoverings. He has been part of the Dutch system. So he was part of the Ajax Academy before going into the Vitesse Academy. So he has very good fundamentals. He's a very technical player. I think that he was kind of forced to grow up very quickly because we needed a player like him. I think that he hasn't reached his full potential yet. So I think he can be very good, more than he currently is. But of course, he's young and he's learning a lot. I think the move to FC Eindhoven was good because he started playing much more with adults. That helps in their development versus playing U21 all the time. So I feel that he has matured a lot in the last couple of games since he scored that goal against Panama. I'm seeing that his confidence level has grown a lot. We have a lot of hopes that he can be our player that can reach a top league in Europe and be a consistent player for different reasons. One because he was born in Europe. He has the European passport. It's easier to play in a European league with the European passport, but also because he's grown up in that environment. It's very difficult for a Salvadorian from the local league to make the jump to a big league. It's very difficult because our league is not very strong. It's not very strong, and our players sometimes struggle when they move out to a different league. So I personally, I feel that Enrico could potentially be a player who can play for the Spanish league, La Liga, or in the Eredivisie. Hopefully he goes back. There's a chance he goes back to Vitesse in the winter. So yeah, he's right now, due to his age and where he grew up and where he currently is, he's our top prospect for El Salvador.
All right, this question on screen regarding the playing style. I'm gonna get to that, but just quickly before we get to that, there is a recent issue that I touched on in a video of mine as well, where I spoke about the discrimination that some of our overseas born players face from their clubs when going on international duty for their country. Does the overseas born players for El Salvador, do they face similar discriminatory practices against them from some of the respective clubs?
Probably not currently, but it has happened in previous years where a player was relegated to the bench after going on international duty, and it seems like it becomes very difficult for them to get back on the starting 11. We've seen some of those things, not recently, but more in like 5-6 years ago with some of the players that were going to the national team. I have seen some of that.
Because we currently, there has been sort of a mini outcry, so to speak, from some of our players. Andre Gray touched on it recently in a BBC, in an athletic interview that he did. We did a video on it talking about that, and also Leon Bailey faced some issues with Aston Villa fans. They were very, very upset on Twitter but in particular, Anthony Grant, since he has represented Jamaica, he has not featured for Swindon since he represented Jamaica. So it is a serious problem that we are currently facing.
Yeah.
A switch now of focus more to the current El Salvadorian team, right? In terms of going more along the lines of previewing the upcoming game. Playing style. Karum Hugh, one of my subscribers, is asking, what is the playing style of the current El Salvador national team under Hugo Perez?
Well, as I mentioned before, we are not a very physical team. Our athleticism is something that we lack. So we have to focus on trying to play more of a possession style game, because our players are naturally very skilled, very good with the ball and their feet. We are not a team that can play long balls because that's not our strength. So I think, from what I've observed, our style is trying to play very organized from the back line to all the way to the top, holding the ball, incorporating more pieces as we hold the ball, but most importantly, playing a very organized style of football, where we play with the ball from the back line all the way to the top. That's what we try to play. That's what we've been working on, and it takes work. It takes work because one of the problems in El Salvador is that our league lacks an identity, like a style of play. So it's been a little bit difficult for the staff, um, for the coaching staff. When the players arrive, they have to learn this new style and this new philosophy and this new way of playing, and it's taking time for our players to adjust to that. But I would say, yeah, playing with the ball, touches. I mean, the passing, it has been our strength for a very long time. Having the ball, we have players that are very skilled, that are very sneaky with the ball. Very very quick with their moves. That's Those are our strengths, and that's what we try. We try to exploit that.
All right, so you touched a little bit on my next question. I was going to ask you, what are the strengths and weaknesses of El Salvador? You touched on the strengths. What exactly? Please go a little bit more in detail about the weaknesses. We're scouting out El Salvador right now in a youth. We have
Well,
the head coach at speed dial.
I don't know if Theodore Whitmore is listening to this interview, so I have to be very careful with the things that I disclose. I think we have it's a young team. I would say, I mean, obviously, if you look at the qualifiers, scoring goals has been, that's our weakness right now. But we're hoping that gets better tonight. We're hoping to score all the goals that we haven't scored tonight. But one thing that's happening right now in El Salvador is that our team right now is very different than the team we had 8 months ago. Because what happened is that Hugo Perez has been our coach for 7 months now, about 6-7 months, 6.5 months, and he was hired with 2026 in mind. So a lot of the players that are called up are with 2026 in mind. So we have a lot of 20-year-olds, 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds. So the team that used to be the base of the national team, they're no longer there, because they were more on the older side, possibly not, they're not going to make it past this qualifier. So we have a brand new team. So it's a team that is getting to know each other, yeah, we're yes, it's a work in process, I would say, for El Salvador.
Hmm. That's very interesting to know that he was hired not with this World Cup cycle in mind. So El Salvador is making a serious push for 2026.
That is the main goal, and of course, I mean, we have Qatar right now, and we want to compete, we want to play, we want to qualify. But when you look at a process, right, like a multi-year process, 2026 is what's in mind, and we're trying to get a lot of exposure for some of our young players in the current qualifier, so that when we play the next qualifier for 2026, we have a well seasoned, well oiled machine.
Whoa. Whoa, guys, you hear that? Look out for El Salvador 2026. I mean, if they have young players and they are holding their own in CONCACAF right now, this experience will be valuable for them. And in 4 years' time, they're going to be a very dangerous team. Very dangerous team. By the way, Hugo, a lot of our viewers seem to be loving the interview. One just commented, love this interview formula. It gives us a wider perspective. Eddie said, class interview. So, and by the way, these are also other fellow vloggers as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
in the comment section, they really seem to be appreciating the info that you are providing us. But honestly, that's very worrying for me, though, Hugo. The mere fact that this team is not even being built for now, it's being built for the future. And I hope I hope somebody from the JFF is listening, because this is the type of foresight that we need in our federation, where El Salvador has brought in young players like Enrico to be, overseas born players to build for future World Cups and not just the upcoming World Cup cycle. Because a major problem for us, Hugo, is that our players are coming too late.
Mm-hmm.
Mikel Antonio has only ever played one game for us. So it's very interesting to hear you say this now. One of the things I noticed when doing when looking at the El Salvadoran team, they seem to have a number of players, one from the El Salvadoran League and two from one club in particular, Alianza.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to me, that dynamic.
Uh, Alianza has been the core of the Salvadorian national team for years. They are probably the wealthiest team in El Salvador. They're from the capital city. They tend to have the best players, from the best local players. So they've been the core of the national team for a while. Um, Now with Hugo Perez, there were a number of them who were left out because of their age, and because some potentially better players were found abroad. But Alianza has been for the last few years the core of the backbone of the national team. And there's a few missing. I mean, there's Narciso Orellana is suspended for tonight and for the next game, so he's not there. But there are Brian Tamacas, Mario Gonzalez, the goalkeeper, um, Marvin Monterrosa. That's three players from Alianza. There's another one that is a new call-up. I don't remember the name. That's the fourth player of Alianza. So, yeah, Alianza is the team that provides the most amount of players at the moment.
And I can just imagine how much of a positive or how much of a benefit that is to the national team to have so many of the play. Basically, the core of the team is not only from one league, but from one club. From a standpoint of team chemistry, I mean, that must do wonders, and also helps you guys to get friendlies like the one you had the other day with
Mm-hmm.
Bolivia.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yes.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. And another reason why El Salvador should be feared.
Yes, it's. I mean, although we're not going to have some of those players tonight, or the usual starters. Yes, Alianza. It's a benefit. It's a benefit because they know each other. They play together every weekend, so that is a definitely a big plus for us.
It kind of seems for a little while that El Salvador's football is kind of making a return, so to speak. Would you agree with that? Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, that's the goal. I mean, El Salvador for a long time had the um, the record of being the only team from Central America to have been to qualify to two World Cups. That changed after '98. But we used to be a strong team in the area, and then, in my opinion, what happened is that a lot of the management, not necessarily the federation, but the league, kind of got stuck in that '70s, '80s, and the rest of the world, of the football world, evolved, and we haven't. Part of that is bringing players from abroad. A lot of other countries started doing that. We didn't. The use of technology to analyze matches, to analyze rivals, um, those things that everyone does, we were not doing, and yes, that's the goal. We're trying to rebuild and go back to what we used to be. Back in the '80s, where we had a pretty strong team. That hasn't been the case in a while, so hopefully we can get back.
Who are the dangerous El Salvadorian players that Reggae Boys fans need to watch out for?
I don't know. I can't say. I can't say. I'm afraid.
I was trying to see if I could get that out of you. I was just trying, man. You guys had a red card in the last game. How big of a miss will that be?
Yes, that's Narciso Orellana. That's he's been our starting number six. For Yeah, he's one of our best players. We're not gonna have him tonight, but we have been trying to build depth in our team and having many options available. So I'm sure that we'll be ready to cover that area tonight. But yeah, he's one of our best players. Narciso, experienced player. He's been playing for the senior team since he was very young, so he has a lot of miles under his belt. And unfortunately, he was suspended last game.
Does Elsa the fans upbeat and optimistic that they can qualify for this World Cup, or is the focus from the fans mainly on 2026?
Oof. I think it's very difficult for the Salvadorian to get Salvadorian fans to have a long-term vision. They don't see beyond. Most of them don't see beyond the next game. So um, I think at the moment there's some fans who probably lost hope. Um, the ticket sales were not that great for tonight's game as of a couple of days ago. But it could also be the economy. I mean, it's in El Salvador we use the dollar, and people make very little, and the tickets are expensive. So people like to save their money for Mexico, USA, the big matches. But I think that tonight's match is actually one of the most important matches for us, because Jamaica is in a good momentum with two victories. They are our direct rivals at the moment. I feel like beating Jamaica tonight will be putting a stop on Jamaica, one, and two, putting us back in the fight for that fourth or third spot. So I don't know. I mean, the Salvadorian fans are interesting. I wouldn't say right now there's a whole lot of optimism, but then last minute the stadium may be full, and that's kind of usually the case where there's not a culture of buying your ticket ahead of time, or it's more like you wait for game day and then you get in line and buy your ticket. However, we're not. The back of our goals are suspended. We cannot have fans behind our goals because of people like to throw a lot of water. So yeah, I'm optimistic personally. I think that Jamaica's a strong team. It's a very strong team, and especially now that technically this is your first game where you're able to have your full squad. So
And Hugo, we still don't have the full squad. There's still a number of key players that are missing.
but you have a stronger squad than you had 4 games ago.
True.
So it's gonna be a good match. Jamaica, historically, we struggle against Jamaica.
True.
It's not an easy team. Jamaica has, from the Caribbean, Jamaica I think is the top team. I think the strongest team. I mean, Trinidad and Tobago used to be there, but recently they haven't. Jamaica has stayed up there pretty strong. It's a strong team with a lot of good players. I think it's gonna be a very difficult match for both teams, and of course for us playing at home, we have the pressure to win and the responsibility to play a good match, to create opportunities to score goals and take advantage of any opportunities that we create.
You know the record between Jamaica and El Salvador? You know what the record is?
I don't have it in front of me, but I know it's pretty even right now, I think, in qualifiers. In World Cup qualifiers.
In the qualifiers. All right. So total games played, 21. Jamaica has won 10. We have drawn 6 and you guys have won 5. That's total. Jamaica has lost. Jamaica has 3 losses versus El Salvador in the World Cup qualifiers. The last loss came on November the 15th, 2000, 20 plus years ago. 2 of the 3 losses came in El Salvador and 1 in Kingston. So it's generally speaking, at least it's a pretty decent record we have against you guys.
Yeah, again, it's difficult. Jamaica is a difficult team. I'm not expecting an easy match tonight, and especially I think Jamaica has just grown in the last years more and more. Maybe that's not your perspective because since '98 you haven't qualified to a World Cup, but Jamaica is very strong.
The partial ban. I want to talk quickly about the fans because El Salvador has some very interesting fans, right? The stadium ban. How the partial ban rather. How difficult? How much of a hindrance will that be to your team, and how much of a positive will that be for ours? Because I'm telling you, man, when you watch the games in El Salvador, the fans don't play, man. Especially behind the goals, they give a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Yes. We have a very good fan base. We're very, very passionate fan base. One of the benefits that we have is that our stadium, Cuscatlan, doesn't have a track field. It's more of a, you have the field and you have the fans. So the fans are on top of you. So they put a lot of pressure on the rivals, a lot of pressure. Throwing things, that's, I think in this day and age, players don't get intimidated by that. It's annoying. I mean,
Hugo, I saw
Here's the thing.
Mexicans. I
Okay,
saw
here's the thing.
Mexicans dodging water bottles in a Hugo.
So here's an interesting fact that may be a factor for Jamaicans. Because I think it was a factor for the United States. When you play in a top league, right, in England, for example, you play in an atmosphere in which you're safe, right? You're safe at all times, and all you have to do is focus on playing, and of course, there's always fans that are very intense, and in England you have that intensity. But in El Salvador, the environment can be very hostile, where I think
Very.
for some players who come from Europe and they never experienced that type of environment, it may be a little bit intimidating. I don't know. I mean, there are sirens, like ambulance sirens that are played in the stadium as part of the atmosphere. When there's a corner kick, they usually play that sound effect. In the previous match, when the national anthems were sang, there was a celebration, and there was like a fireworks, like an explosive, and I remember Gio Reyna from the United States kind of jumping, and it's things that you don't expect, that are part of just the atmosphere of the way that football it's enjoyed in El Salvador. I mean, not having fans behind the goals. I mean, yes, I think for the Jamaican goalkeepers, it's going to be easier to stay focused. But at the end of the day, they're professionals, and I think that those factors don't play much of a big role. I think players they adapt, and eventually they get used to the atmosphere that they're playing in. But it's not an easy field. It's not easy for anyone. But the good thing, I haven't seen the stadium in Kingston. I don't know what the conditions are now, but I think in terms of the quality of the field, they're similar to the one that we have in El Salvador. So probably for Jamaican players, it's not going to be that difficult if the foreign-based players have played, have trained in Kingston in the national stadium. I would say when a player comes from leagues where the fields are like a carpet, perfect condition, then you go to other countries in Central America and the grass is taller and the ball is lower. It takes some time to adjust to those things, but I don't think that would be the a problem for Jamaican players who have played. I mean, there's many players who have already played there in the current roster for Jamaica.
Do you guys in El Salvador, what's the vibe surrounding this current game? Do you guys, because we in Jamaica, we see it as a do or die game. Mm-hmm. Do you guys feel the same way as well? What's the vibe around this game in El Salvador?
I think so. I think that's the way we're seeing it too, because we know that we're next to each other in terms of points, and Jamaica, like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of momentum. After your 2 victories, you kind of came back from the dead in a way, and for us, we just have to. I feel like it's key for us to stop Jamaica. Just and go back, get the 3 points, and get back in the fight. So it is. I mean, in a way, for us, it's a do or die situation for us, because we have played a lot of home matches already. So after today, we have to go out a lot. We will only have 2 more matches at home after tonight, because we already played the United States, we played Mexico, we played Honduras at home, So we already play a lot of matches at home and lost some points at home already. So we've lost crucial points at home. So it's a crucial match for us tonight.
Yeah, yeah. You guys have mostly away games coming up.
Yeah.
So, you know, that and do you guys do well away from home?
Not necessarily, but that might change.
Yeah, yeah. Um, what do El Salvador fans think about this game against Jamaica? How do they see Jamaica? Do they see this as a winnable game?
I think there's mixed feelings. I think fans are well aware that Jamaica is not easy. That they have memories of 1997 when we draw 2-2 at home, and that basically killed our hopes and dreams of qualifying to the World Cup. So we don't have the best memories of Jamaica as fans. So I don't think fans are seeing that as an easy game. They think the fans know that it's going to be a difficult game. They know Jamaica has a strong team with a lot of foreign-based players, and it's going to be difficult.
I want a little bit of your perspective now, Hugo.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see this game unfolding later on tonight?
Of course, I want El Salvador to win. I think we need to have a perfect game, El Salvador. If we want to win, I think we need to have a perfect game, meaning no mistakes. Don't make too many mistakes. We can't make mistakes against teams like Jamaica, who are fast, who are strong, who have players who can score from far distance. So we have to be perfect in the way we play with the ball, with our possession. And I think that any opportunity of scoring that we have to take advantage of it if we want to win this game. I'm feeling positive that we're going to win, but I don't think it's going to be a piece of cake. It's not going to be a picnic day for us. So I just think that we need to counteract Jamaica's strength, and that's by not allowing them to have the ball. And us playing with the ball, making fast touches, very quick touches in between the lines. I think that's where we can cause a lot of trouble for the big frame Jamaican defenders. I think that's where we can actually create some damage. But again, we have to do what we have struggled to do recently, which is score the opportunities that we have.
Yeah, and you know that's a big issue for you guys in terms of, you know, with the greatest of respect to your team, you guys have not been the best in the final third. That has been problematic for you guys.
Right. Yes.
Hopefully it stays that way. I am really hoping that it stays that way tonight, because trust me, man, we desperately need these 3 points right now, man. Honestly.
We're in the same situation. Same situation here.
Yes, we are. Have you watched any of the Jamaica games in the qualifiers?
I have not had an opportunity to watch any yet. I have not, no.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it will be a very good game. I think it will be a closely contested game. One of the strengths of the El Salvadorans is, man, they run like hell. They I mean, I don't know what you guys feed these players, man. They have an engine, man. They just keep on going. They just don't stop. They just keep on running. It's crazy. So we're definitely gonna have to go down to El Salvador and put in some real work. These 3 points are not gonna come easy at all. It's not. I think we will win though, Hugo.
We'll see.
I think we will win. All right, guys. In the comment section, you guys have any comments? You guys want to ask Mr. Hugo Alvarado? Any comments in the comment section? You guys just post it in the comment section, type it in the comment section, and I will ask Mr. Alvarado. Mr. Alvarado, just quickly, I forgot this in the earlier stage of the interview when you were talking about your work with the national team. Could you just give us a more precise information, so to speak, as to how you go about identifying these players and roping in them into the national setup in terms of the identification method and how you approach them?
Well, a lot of my methods of identifying the players are through internet, social media, big. I mean, I have a page where I have about currently about 72,000 followers. So sometimes I get leads from some of the fans, and then I follow up, and then I try to reach the player. If I'm not able to reach the player, then I try to reach a family member of the player or a friend of the player until I get confirmation that they are in fact Salvadorians. From there, I contact them, and I start talking to them about the possibility of representing El Salvador. I try to be very strategic. I try to be very careful and respectful, because as someone who has grown in another country, I understand that sometimes it's not easy, when you're taken by surprise, when you're contacted by a scout. You can't expect the player to immediately be ready to engage with you and say, yes, I want to play for, although that's usually my experience, but I try to ease in to that question. And then from there, I try to plant that idea in their heads that there's a possibility that they're being followed by the scout of the national team. And then I try to build a relationship with them and go from there. And then, then I send the information to the federation, to the coaches. And if they are interested in bringing one of them in, then, conversation is stepped up to the next level, and the sporting director comes in, and we have a conversation together, and then help them with their documentation if they need help. And then we bring them into camp. That's usually how I go about it. Sometimes I will go in person to see a player, depending if they're local players, but most of it is online identification, and then from there getting footage, getting videos, looking at the videos, making highlight videos, and seeing if they have the potential. And it also depends on where they play, which league they play. If we're looking for a player for the youth squads, then if they play in academy, that would do it, because that's something else we're doing. We're building our U17 and our U20 at the moment, also with players from abroad, so that we can start building from the bottom up and having those players be part of the system and feel identify with El Salvador by the time they reach the age to be in the senior team. So yeah, that's kind of a lot of my approach is online research, social media research, and also at this point now, a lot of help from my fans and my followers as well.
Okay, Eddie Guna, who is a fellow vlogger from Sports DTM, big up to Sports DTM big channel. Eddie was asking earlier on, like Jamaica, is this the best El Salvadorian team, or is it that 1982 team? Because many Jamaicans feel as though we have a golden generation right now.
Mm-hmm. No, not necessarily. I think that the team that qualified to the 82 World Cup was, we had our best player in Salvadorian history part of that team, who people and experts in the sport compare him to Maradona, or some people say that he was better than Maradona. and that's Jorge Gonzalez. He's called El Mágico, which means the magician in English. And if you look him up, highlights, he played the 1982 World Cup, and then he moved to Cadiz in Spain, and he just used to do magic with the ball. So he was part of that generation of the 82, as well as other players who also ended up playing in Spain and other countries. So a lot of people will say that the 82 was the golden generation of El Salvador. Um, I agree with that to a certain extent, but I try to focus more on the future. I don't want to get stuck. I feel that a lot of Salvadorians got stuck in 82, the players of 82. And now to me, it's like, okay, what can we do to do something better than 82 and qualify to another World Cup? I think that there's a lot of emerging players in this team that may end up being, as good as the 82 team. But because the team is young, I don't think we're there yet. So I wouldn't say that this is our golden generation. But it is the first generation in which we are putting more of a focus on the players who were not born in El Salvador. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds in the future.
But the potential you're saying is there for it to be possibly the greatest.
Yes.
Our head coach, Theodore Whitmore, he is under a bit of pressure because of our situation in the table. As a matter of fact, many experts surmise that he has been lucky to still be the head coach of the national team. There have been some times where he has plucked some results out of thin air that has saved him. Are El Salvadorans still on board with their head coach despite the fact that you guys are in a precarious position in the table? Or is everybody on board with the idea that it's 2026 we're really going after?
Our current coach, if you give me a second, I'm going to move to another room with a better connection.
It's okay. I think the connection is very good. It's very good.
Okay. Yeah, but I'll move because somebody else needs to use this room. Sorry.
All right.
But I'll answer your question. There is a lot of support for our current coach, and let's keep in mind that he has only been in the job for 6.5 months. So yes, there's the big focus of 2026. That's our goal. But what happened is that under the previous coach, a lot of people were unhappy with the playing style. It was a very defensive-minded team that we had with the previous Carlos de los Cobos. Sorry about that. I just switched.
No problem.
So the previous coach had more of a defensive style of play, and although we were the results, we were not style of football. So people were not happy with the previous coach. And then we switched to Hugo Perez, our current coach, and we saw a big difference in the Gold Cup. The team play more of offensive style, more ball possession, less defensive. We always try to attack, and people were very happy and hopeful as a result of what they saw in the Gold Cup. Now, we haven't yet been able to replicate what we did in the Gold Cup yet. But I would say overall, there's a very big, very large, high approval rate of the coach. You can't always please everyone, but I don't think. I mean, and as you know, in football, things can change a lot very quickly. But I think that overall there is that general understanding that the goal is 2026. That doesn't mean there's no pressure on the coach, but there's that, there's that, knowing that you can't really blame a coach who's only been there for 6 months, for the way things are unfolding. And although De Los Cobos, the previous coach, um, left us in a qualifying position before CONCACAF changed the rules. We were number 6 team in CONCACAF. Um, he actually is the one who was responsible for coaching the team through those extra matches and qualifying us to the final stage, where we hadn't been in a final stage since 2009. So it's been a while.
Mm.
So he also has that, acknowledgement from the fans that he's also in part responsible for us being in the final round. So there is a very large approval for his work at the moment.
Okay, okay, cool. We're not gonna give you too many questions because we don't want to keep you too long. But just this question from Neo Sovereign. By the way, big up Neo. Neo is the Jamaican vloggers official or unofficial rather attorney at law. So he's an
Okay.
attorney at law. So when we want legal advice, he's the one that we consult.
Okay.
Jamaica has had several players playing for clubs in El Salvador. How does he rate their homegrown club football, and does he think Salvadoran players would play in a Jamaican club?
That's a very, very interesting question. I never thought about that. Um, the football in El Salvador has stayed behind, as I said, the local league. The infrastructure is not that great. Um, some clubs struggle to pay the players their monthly salary. I mean, there, with the exception of maybe 3 or 4 clubs that are the top clubs, usually some of the smaller clubs usually struggle a bit. Um, I think it would be great to have Salvadorian players in the Jamaican league. I don't know what the level of the Jamaican league is. What I can tell you is that uh, Jamaican players that go to El Salvador do well. They do really well, usually because the players that go to our league are offensive, attacking players, big players, physically, and we lack that type of players, those type of players in El Salvador. So when we get a center forward from Jamaica, who is fast and strong, who can win balls in the air, they usually do well and score a lot of goals in our league. Um, yeah, I don't know the level of the Jamaican league, but I think that every time a player leaves their home country to go play in another country, even if the level is not that different from their local league, I feel that it helps them in their growth and development, because you are seen differently when you're a foreign player. There's a lot more expected from you. There's more pressure from the fans towards you, because they know that essentially you're taking a spot from a local player, because you are better than the local player when you play in a different league. So yeah, I think it'll be great if some Jamaican clubs will be interested in Salvadorian players.
All right. Richard Stewart, thanks for the super chat. And Richard is saying that it is a very, or it's a lovely interview. Lovely interview.
Thank
Yes,
you.
man, Richard. Thanks for the super chat and thanks for that. We really appreciate Mr. Alvarado being here with us. Let me just see. Is this a question from Goon? Big up Formula. I know as a collective, El Salvador are very organized, if not individually outstanding. How does Hugo feel about his blue collar team performing against our highly placed European stars? That's the last question from Mr. Alvarado.
Well, there's always I see it as a positive thing, because when for example, for a lot of the players from the Salvadorian national team who play in the local league, or even if you play, I mean, we have some players from the USL, which is the second division in the United States. I know Jamaica has a few players too from Miami FC. Um, when you play against some of those players like Bailey, who play in Germany, or you play against players that are playing in the top leagues in the world, I think it's a motivation, it's a motivator factor for our players to prove that they can perform well against those players. So I think rather than being an intimidating factor for Salvadorian players, I think it's actually a boost of confidence to play. And you want to be the best, you have to play against the best. And some of those players in the Jamaican squad play in the top leagues in the world, and for a Salvadorian player to do well against them, I think I think our players are motivated to do that. They know very well that some of the players in the Jamaican squad play in England, play in Germany, and if they do well against those players, perhaps there's a scout from those leagues, looking at the games, and it could be their opportunity to make a move and earn a good contract. So it's good. It's always good to play against teams that have the level of players that Jamaica has at this time.
Okay, Hugo, I said that was the last question, but I can't. This question is a very good question. I can't skip over this one, so this will be the last question, guys. Richard is asking, what are your guest thoughts on a biannual World Cup from a CONCACAF perspective, and I would add to that from an El Salvador perspective?
I'm against it. Um, I mean, in one hand, it'll be great to be able to have an opportunity to have a chance to qualify to a World Cup every 2 years. But if you think about the process of qualifying to a World Cup alone, is about 2 years. So it's gonna be like nonstop. It's like gonna be like a nonstop circle. I think it might be too much for the players. Obviously, probably a lot of the world competitions will have to end. I don't know if a Gold Cup would still be part of CONCACAF if there's a qualifier there to be played every 2 years as well. Um, but the biggest factor for me is that it takes a lot of the charm from a World Cup. It takes a lot of unlike other sports like the NFL or the NBA, you lose the final and then you know that next year you play again and then you might make it to the final. But a World Cup, there's something about a tournament that you can only play every 4 years. That if you don't make it, you have to wait 4 years. I think that adds a lot of value in many levels to a tournament like the World Cup. So I would prefer the World Cup to stay every 4 years. I'm not a big fan of every biannual World Cup.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And it's so crazy that we are the smaller nations who would probably benefit more from having the World Cup played every 2 years. But a lot of the sentiment I hear from even smaller nations is that we disagree with the policy. Neil is agreeing with you. Wow, see, Jamaica is not so unique in terms of development, and the mentality that our homegrown is intrinsically better is counterproductive. We need to check ourselves and get on with development. So there you go. The garden, Bea is saying great interview formula, like up the live people, right? And again, thanks to Richard Stewart for his comment and for his super chat. Lovely interview. So guys, oh, by the way, Huja is asking, who is this fellow? You didn't read the title, my friend. This gentleman on our panel is Mr. Hugo Alvarado. He is a scout for the El Salvadorian national team. So we brought him on just to discuss a little bit about his work and do a preview for the game coming up tonight. All right, so Mr. Alvarado, any final thoughts?
Thank you for having me here. Again, I always, been very well aware of Jamaica, and it's nice to get to talk to someone from there and learn a little bit about the culture and the mentality of Jamaican people, and specifically to football. So thank you for having me here, and I'm sorry, but we're gonna have to win tonight. It's gonna be a good match. It's gonna be a tough match for both teams, and I hope El Salvador takes the 3 points.
Yeah. One thing I agree with you on right there is that it is definitely going to be a difficult game and a hard fought. If we do win, it will be a hard fought victory. Nessa is saying thanks for your insights, Hugo. And Goontown is saying been nothing short of impressed by the Salvadorian team over the last 2 years. Tonight will be tough. Neo is saying, I hope to hear from Mr. Alvarado again. Good guy. Eddie is saying, Hugo, don't feel any way. We're there for the 3 points. All right. So, Mr. Hugo Alvarado, thanks again for your time on the Formula Sports channel. Trust me, man, it's very much appreciated. And I think the viewers and Reggae Boyz fans really appreciated the perspective of an El Salvadorian.
Thank you. I think it's been a pleasure, and perhaps we can do it again someday.
Yeah, man. Trust me, I would love to. It was a very good show, man. Very good show. You had some very, very good insights, and your opinions is very much appreciated, man. All right. So, guys, we're gonna end the stream now. Thanks for coming on. Much love. Mr. Primo Vision, another fellow vlogger, is saying, bless up, Hugo. Big up yourself. Guys, thanks for, joining us today. We look forward to the upcoming game tonight. Hopefully we'll get the 3 points. 3 points that we really, 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 really need at this time. So, guys, thanks for your comments. Thanks for viewing the stream. Take care. Stay safe, guys. And until next time.